Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. To be, or not to be, Bruno's metallic voice echoed through the dark corridor of the space station. Not now, damn it! Royce Becker hissed, pressing himself against the cold metal wall as laser fire blazed past. Override code Alpha 79. That is the question, the droid continued, its optical sensors flickering with an eerily theatrical glow. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer. More shots ricocheted off the walls. Royce ducked, his leather jacket smoking where a laser had grazed it. The pirates were getting closer, and his only escape route lay behind a sealed airlock, an airlock his usually reliable droid had chosen the worst possible moment to malfunction. "Bruno, if we survive this, I swear I'll have you reprogrammed into a coffee maker." The droid's head swiveled toward him. The slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. "Outrageous is right," Royce muttered, pulling out his blaster. Three pirates rounded the corner, their masked faces illuminated by the emergency lighting. He fired two quick shots, catching one in the shoulder and forcing them back into cover. The job had seemed simple enough. Infiltrate the station, retrieve the stolen data core, get out. Nobody had mentioned the station being overtaken by the Nova Syndicate's most trigger-happy crew, or that his droid would suddenly develop an appreciation for classical theater, or to take arms against a sea of troubles. Bruno's voice had taken on a dramatic vibrato that would have been impressive under different circumstances. "Take arms against this!" A pirate hurled a thermal detonator. Royce kicked it back down the corridor in one fluid motion, then grabbed Bruno's metallic arm and yanked him behind a support beam. The explosion rocked the station, filling the air with smoke and debris. "And by opposing end them." Bruno finished with a theatrical flourish. "That's it." Royce pulled a small device from his belt, his last resort. "Sorry, old friend." He slapped the electromagnetic pulse generator onto Bruno's chassis. The droid's eyes flickered. "Top 10 anime betray." Its voice died mid-sentence as the EMP shut down its systems. Now he had an unconscious droid and rapidly approaching pirates. The smoke wouldn't provide cover for long. Royce checked his wrist computer. The station's schematics showed an emergency access tunnel 20 meters ahead. If he could just... There he is! A barrage of laser fire forced him back. Royce returned fire blindly, his mind racing. The mission was already blown. The data core would have to wait. Right now, survival was the priority. He hoisted Bruno's inactive form over his shoulder, muscles straining under the weight. "You're a lot heavier when you're not helping," he grunted. The droid's only response was an occasional spark from its damaged circuits. The emergency access tunnel was barely wide enough for one person, let alone a man dragging an unconscious droid. Royce's shoulders scraped against the walls as he half crawled, half stumbled forward. Behind him, angry voices echoed through the station. "Find him! The boss wants that core back!" Royce allowed himself a grim smile. At least they didn't know he hadn't managed to grab it. The data core was still in their possession, which meant he'd failed spectacularly, but failure beat death any day of the week. The tunnel opened into a small maintenance bay. Royce's ship, the Lucky Strike, waited exactly where he'd left it, locked to the external docking port. He'd never been so happy to see the battered Corsair-class vessel. "Authorization code Becker-09, he wheezed into his communicator. The ship's boarding ramp descended with a hydraulic hiss. Dragging Bruno up the ramp felt like lifting a dead star whale, but adrenaline was a hell of a motivator. The moment they were inside, Royce slammed the emergency release. The ship detached from the station with a violent shudder. "Computer, get us out of here! Maximum thrust!" The Lucky Strike's engines roared to life. G-forces pressed Royce into the pilot's seat as the ship accelerated away from the station. Several warning lights flashed on his console. The pirates were powering up their weapons. "Come on, baby," he muttered, his hands flying over the controls. "Show them why they call you lucky." The first volley of shots passed harmlessly beneath the ship. The second clipped their shields, making the entire vessel shudder. Royce rolled them into a tight spiral, putting a cluster of storage satellites between them and their pursuers. "Plotting jump coordinates," the ship's computer announced in its monotone voice. "Warning, randomized jump not recommended. Override, just get us somewhere that's not here." The stars stretched into lines as the Lucky Strike leaped into hyperspace. Royce slumped in his chair, finally allowing himself to breathe. Bruno lay in an ungainly heap by the cargo door, still offline. "Computer, damage report. Shield capacity at 62%. Minor hull damage to sectors 7 and 12. Primary systems functional. Secondary systems functional. Tertiary systems. Yeah, we're alive." Royce stood, his legs shaky from the adrenaline crash. He needed a drink, a mechanic, and preferably both. "Where's the nearest civilized port with decent repair facilities?" Calculating. Nearest suitable location is Aldrin 5 station. Current estimated arrival time, 47 minutes at current speed. Aldrin 5. He'd heard of it. A sprawling commercial hub known for its technical expertise and labyrinthine bureaucracy. Not ideal, but beggars couldn't be choosers. Royce spent the journey trying to diagnose Bruno's malfunction, but advanced robotics had never been his strong suit. The droid systems were a maze of custom modifications and jury-rigged improvements accumulated over years of service. One wrong move and he might turn Bruno into a singing telegram or worse. The Lucky Strike dropped out of hyperspace in view of Aldrin 5. The station was a massive structure, all gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. Hundreds of ships moved in careful patterns around it, from tiny personal vessels to massive cargo haulers. Aldrin 5 control to unidentified vessel. A bored voice crackled over the comm. "State your business." "This is the Lucky Strike requesting emergency docking clearance. Got a malfunctioning droid in need of repairs." A pause. "Processing. Docking Bay 47C has been assigned. Please submit Form X-115 for mechanical assistance upon arrival. Be advised that non-standard repair requests require additional documentation." "Yeah, sure, whatever." Royce guided the ship toward their assigned bay. "Just point me to your best mechanic." Another pause. Technical Services Directory is available at Information Kiosk 12, pending completion of form. Royce cut the transmission. He'd deal with the paperwork when he got there. Right now, he needed to figure out how to transport 200 kilos of deactivated droid through a busy space station. The docking procedure went smoothly enough, though Royce's credit account screamed in protest at the berthing fees. He managed to requisition a hover dolly for Bruno, drawing curious looks from passers-by as he pushed his Shakespeare-quoting friend through the station's pristine corridors. Following directions from increasingly unhelpful information terminals, he finally located what appeared to be a high-end repair shop. The sign read, "Astri Technical Solutions" in several languages, with a holographic display showing various mechanical marvels being restored to working order. The shop's interior was a stark contrast to the sterile station corridors. Tools and components covered every available surface, and the air hummed with the sound of diagnostic equipment. The space somehow managed to be both chaotic and meticulously organized. "Hello?" Royce called out. "Anyone here who can fix a droid with literary aspirations?" "One moment!" a female voice called from somewhere behind a towering stack of servo motors. "Just finishing up a delicate calibration." A flash of blue caught Royce's eye, and then she appeared, the most striking woman he'd ever seen. Her skin was a deep azure that seemed to shimmer under the workshop lights, complementing the silver coveralls that hugged her curves in ways that industrial wear really shouldn't. Dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, revealing elegant features and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. "I'm Thea Astri," she said, wiping her hands on a cloth. "What seems to be the—" Her voice trailed off as she spotted Bruno. "Is that a Mark VII companion series?" "Among other things," Royce managed, trying not to stare. "I'm Royce Becker, and this theatrical heap of trouble is Bruno." Thea circled the deactivated droid, her expression shifting from professional interest to undisguised excitement. "These were discontinued decades ago. The autonomous learning matrices alone are worth—" She stopped, composing herself. What happened to him? He decided to perform Hamlet instead of opening an airlock. Had to hit him with an EMP to shut him up. "You emped a Mark VII?" Thea's eyes widened. "That's like using a sledgehammer to tune a quantum harmonizer." "It was that or let the pirates turn us both into space debris," Royce defended. "Can you fix him?" She was already connecting diagnostic tools to Bruno's access ports. "Maybe, probably. These readings are interesting." Her fingers flew over a hollow screen. "I've never seen modifications like these. Did you do this work yourself?" "Most of it. Over the years, you pick up a few tricks." "Tricks?" Thea laughed. "You've completely redesigned his cognitive matrix. Half these upgrades shouldn't even work together, but somehow—" She looked up at him with new appreciation. "You're either a genius or insane." "I prefer creatively resourceful," Royce grinned. There was something about her enthusiasm that made his pulse quicken. "So, what's the damage?" Thea's expression turned serious. "The good news is, I can fix him. The bad news is—" She pulled up a form on her screen. "According to station regulations, any work on modified military-grade artificial intelligence requires a Class 3 cybernetic intervention permit." "Military grade? Bruno's about as military as a food synthesizer. Tell that to the registration database. His base model was originally designed for tactical support. Even with your modifications, he's still classified as potential weaponry." Royce ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "How long does it take to get this permit?" "Standard processing time is 2 to 3 business cycles." She must have seen his expression because she quickly added, "But there might be a faster way." "I'm listening." Thea stepped closer and Royce caught a hint of something mechanical yet sweet, engine oil and vanilla. "I could classify this as an emergency repair under Section 47B of the Technical Services Code, but—" Her lips curved in a mischievous smile. "That would require some creative documentation. Name your price." "Dinner." Royce blinked. "Excuse me?" "Dinner. With me. Tonight." She tapped her screen. "Unless you'd prefer to wait those 2 to 3 business cycles?" He should have been suspicious. Beautiful women didn't usually ask him to dinner, especially not after knowing him for all of 5 minutes. But there was something in her eyes, a mix of challenge and genuine interest that made his usual caution evaporate. "Deal," he said before he could think better of it. "But Bruno better not start reciting love sonnets when you're done." "No promises," Thea winked. "Now, let's see what's really going on inside this fascinating brain of his." She began dismantling Bruno's head casing with practiced efficiency. Royce found himself watching her hands, strong and sure, but surprisingly delicate in their movements. She clearly knew exactly what she was doing, which only made her more intriguing. "So," she said without looking up, "want to tell me what you and your literary droid were really doing that got you into so much trouble?" "Would you believe we were delivering poetry books to orphans?" Thea snorted. "With those custom shield modifications I'm detecting, try again, Spacer. Let's just say some people took exception to our business methods. Pirates? Something like that." She glanced at him, one eyebrow raised. The Nova Syndicate's been hitting stations in this sector. Wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Royce kept his expression neutral. News travels fast. Everything travels fast on Aldrin 5, especially gossip. She extracted a small component from Bruno's head. Ah, here's your problem. Your friend's personality matrix crossed wires with his cultural database during the last backup cycle. Must have happened when you tried to access the station's security systems. I never said anything about security systems. Thea's smile was knowing. You didn't have to. These wear patterns on his interface ports tell quite a story. She held up the component. Question is, do you want me to just fix the malfunction, or would you like me to take a look at these other interesting modifications while I'm in here? Their eyes met, and Royce realized she was offering more than just repair services. She was offering trust, a rare commodity in their line of work. How about we discuss it over dinner, he suggested. Smooth, she laughed. But you still haven't told me what you were really after on that station. Maybe I just like making dramatic exits. With unrecovered data cores? Her casual tone didn't quite hide her interest. Station chatter mentioned something valuable being stolen recently, something the syndicate once kept quiet. Royce stiffened. You're well informed. I hear things. She shrugged. People talk while their ships are being repaired, especially when they think the blue girl is just another gearhead. And what do you do with the things you hear? Depends on who's asking. Thea set down her tools and faced him directly. Are you asking Royce Becker? The way she said his name sent an unexpected thrill down his spine. This was dangerous territory. He barely knew her, and she already knew too much. But something in his gut told him to trust her, and his gut had kept him alive this long. What if I am? Before she could answer, Bruno's systems suddenly hummed to life. His optical sensors flickered and his vocabulator crackled. All the world's a stage, the droid announced, and all the men and women merely players. Thea burst out laughing. Well, at least he's branched out to as you like it. Royce groaned. Can you make him stop? I could, she grinned. But where's the fun in that? Besides, she leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper. I think your friend has excellent timing. Dinner, then we'll talk about that data core. Deal? Looking into her eyes, Royce knew he was probably making a huge mistake. But then, his best stories usually started that way. Deal, he said, as Bruno launched into what promised to be a very long soliloquy. The restaurant on Level 7 of Aldrin 5 Station tried very hard to pretend it wasn't in space. Real wooden tables, holographic candles, and synthesized Earth atmosphere combined to create an illusion of planet-side dining. Royce found it pretentious, but Thea's eyes lit up at the decor. They even have actual grown plants, she said, gesturing to the vine-covered walls. Not replicated. Impressive, Royce agreed, though he was more focused on how the soft lighting played across her blue skin. She'd traded her work coveralls for a sleek silver dress that made his mouth go dry. So, Thea leaned forward, her voice dropping conspiratorially. Tell me about this data core you failed to steal. Royce choked on his drink. Direct, aren't you? Life's too short for games, she smiled, especially in our line of work. Before he could respond, a service droid approached their table. Good evening. I am Way TR7, your server for tonight. Please be advised that all menu selections must comply with Station Dietary Regulation 47B. Would you like to review the necessary documentation? Just bring us whatever's good, Royce said quickly, trying to head off another bureaucratic tangent. I apologize, sir, but good is a subjective qualification requiring Form 32C for proper assessment. Perhaps you would prefer to fill out our taste preference questionnaire. Thea laughed at Royce's expression. 2 synth steaks, medium rare, with the house wine. I have a standing exemption, authorization code, Astri 9. The droid's lights flickered. Processing. Confirmed. However, I must inform you that sharing exemption privileges requires a notarized. Override code Blue 7, Thea interrupted. The droid immediately turned and glided away. Handy trick, Royce observed. Being the station's best mechanic has its perks. She traced the rim of her water glass. Now, about that core. What makes you think I'd tell you anything? Because I'm betting whatever's on it is worth a lot to the right people, and because... She reached across the table and touched his hand. A jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them. I might be able to help. Royce studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. Her gaze remained steady, curious but not predatory. The touch of her fingers lingered on his hand. The core contains shipping manifests, he said finally. Proof that certain high-ranking officials are working with the Nova Syndicate. Corruption in high places? I'm shocked, Thea said dryly, but her eyes sparkled with interest. And you were hired to retrieve it for parties who'd prefer to remain anonymous. Royce shrugged. Simple job until Bruno decided to become a thespian. Their food arrived. The synth steak, a perfect replica of the real thing. Thea took a bite and made an appreciative sound that did interesting things to Royce's concentration. Speaking of Bruno, she said, there's something you should know. When I was running diagnostics, I found some interesting security protocols buried in his code, military-grade stuff. That's impossible. I stripped all that out years ago. No, you redirected it. Cleverly, I might add, but it's still there, which means... She grimaced. According to Station Regulation 15C, he's technically classified as a weapon of mass destruction. Royce set down his fork. You're joking. Welcome to Aldrin 5. She took a sip of wine. Where everything requires a form, and every form requires 3 more forms to verify it. How long to clear this up? Standard processing time for weapons reclassification is 6 to 8 weeks, unless, Thea's smile turned mischievous. Unless we can prove he's emotionally dependent on his owner. There's a loophole in the regulations for companion units with established bonds. As if on cue, Bruno's voice echoed from Royce's communicator. Master, I feel compelled to inform you that your current dining companion's vital signs suggest strong physical attraction. Might I suggest... Royce quickly muted the device. Not helping, Bruno. Thea's laughter was rich and genuine. On the contrary, that's exactly the kind of emotional attachment we need to document, though perhaps with less commentary on my vital signs. How exactly do we document something like that? Well, she leaned closer and Royce caught that intoxicating scent of vanilla and machine oil again. We'll need to spend some time together. For official observation purposes, of course. Of course, he agreed, his mouth suddenly dry. Strictly professional. Absolutely. Her knee brushed his under the table. We should probably start tonight. These evaluations can be intensive. The temperature in the restaurant seemed to rise several degrees. Any particular evaluation protocols we need to follow? Oh, dozens. All very rigorous. Her fingers traced patterns on his wrist. We might need to find somewhere more private to review them all. Bruno's voice crackled through again, somehow having overridden the mute. If you two are planning intimate relations, might I recommend the Grand Nebula Hotel on level 12? Their soundproofing is excellent according to station reviews. This time, Royce switched the communicator off completely. I'm going to donate him to a children's theater. Don't be hasty, Thea laughed. He's not wrong about the Grand Nebula. Their eyes met across the table, the pretense of professional discussion evaporating. The attraction that had been simmering since they met in her workshop suddenly felt electric, inevitable. For observation purposes? Royce asked, his voice rough. Among others. Thea stood, offering her hand. Shall we continue this discussion somewhere more private? The Grand Nebula Hotel lived up to its name, with holographic star fields dancing across the walls and ceiling. The lift ride to Thea's suite was charged with unspoken tension, their bodies deliberately not touching but acutely aware of each other's presence. So, Royce broke the silence, about those bureaucratic protocols. Shut up, Thea said, and kissed him. Her lips were soft but demanding, her body pressing him against the lift wall. Royce responded instantly, his hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. She tasted like wine and possibility, her skin radiating warmth through the thin fabric of her dress. The lift chimed, forcing them to separate. Thea's eyes were dark with desire as she led him down the corridor, her fingers intertwined with his. The door to her suite opened at her approach. Computer, privacy mode, she commanded. The windows polarized, the lights dimmed, and the room's atmospheric controls adjusted to something more intimate. Impressive setup, Royce managed to speak, but she silenced him with a kiss. This time there was no hesitation. His hand slid into her hair, loosening the elegant braid while she worked at the fastenings of his shirt. They stumbled toward the bedroom, leaving a trail of discarded clothing. You're beautiful, he breathed, taking in the sight of her bare blue skin against the white sheets. Less talking, Thea pulled him down to her. More thorough inspection of my systems. What followed was a blur of sensation and discovery. The taste of her skin, the sound of her gasps, the way she moved against him. Every touch felt electric, charged with something more than just physical attraction. Later, lying tangled in the sheets, Thea traced lazy patterns on his chest. We should probably discuss the actual paperwork at some point. Royce agreed, not really listening. He was too distracted by the way her hair spilled across his shoulder, the curve of her spine in the starlight. I'm serious. She propped herself up on an elbow. Bruno's classification is just the beginning. Once we deal with that, there's the matter of operating licenses, modification permits, AI personality rights. Can't we just... He waved a hand vaguely. Bribe someone? Thea's expression turned serious. Not on Aldrin 5. The bureaucracy is the one constant in an inconstant universe. Even the black market has forms to fill out. Speaking of forms, Royce shifted to face her. Why were you really interested in that data core? She was quiet for a moment, her fingers still tracing patterns on his skin. Let's just say I have a vested interest in exposing certain corruption. My time in the military fleet, it wasn't exactly a voluntary retirement. Someone set you up? Someone decided I knew too much. Her smile was bitter. About deals very similar to what's on that core, I suspect. Royce caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. Seems we might have aligned interests. Maybe. She studied his face. But first, we need to get your droid legally functional. And that means... She reached for a data pad on the bedside table. Now? Royce groaned. Can't it wait until morning? The bureaucracy never sleeps. But she set the pad aside and slid back into his arms. Though I suppose we could take another break first, for morale purposes. Strictly professional, he agreed, pulling her close. Absolutely, she breathed against his lips. Just following protocols. The stars wheeled slowly across the ceiling as they lost themselves in each other again, bureaucracy temporarily forgotten. But in the back of both their minds, plans were already forming. The data core, Bruno's status, Thea's past, all pieces of a puzzle they were only beginning to understand. For now, though, there was just this, skin against skin, shared breath, and the growing sense that whatever they'd stumbled into was far more than either had bargained for. Morning on Aldrin 5 was an artificial construct, but the station's lighting cycle did its best to simulate dawn. Royce woke to find Thea already dressed in her work coveralls, surrounded by floating holographic forms. "Please tell me this is a nightmare," he muttered, sitting up. "Welcome to reality." She tossed him a clean shirt. "We've got appointments with 3 different bureaucratic departments before lunch." "What happened to breakfast in bed?" "Filled out the meal deviation request, but it'll take 6 hours to process." Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "I did get you coffee, though. Real coffee, not synthetic." As if on cue, a service drone whirred in with 2 steaming cups. Royce took his gratefully, watching as Thea manipulated the hovering documents. "So what's first on our bureaucratic adventure?" "Well," she pulled up a particularly complex form. "We need to prove Bruno's emotional dependency, which means psychological evaluation, behavioral assessment, and," she grimaced, "a performance review." "Performance review?" "He'll need to demonstrate his theatrical tendencies are genuine personality traits, not malicious code." Right on cue, Royce's communicator crackled to life. "Good morning, lovebirds. Shall I recite a sonnet to commemorate your night of passion?" "Bruno!" Royce growled. "How are you even active? I left you powered down at the shop." Miss Ostry was kind enough to establish a remote connection. "I must say her technical expertise is most impressive, almost as impressive as her—" "That's enough, Bruno," Thea cut in, but she was smiling. "Save the commentary for the evaluators." They dressed quickly and made their way to the station's administrative center, a labyrinth of offices and waiting rooms. The first official they met was a Valaxian with too many eyes and a passion for paperwork. Form 27B clearly states that emotional bonds must be documented over a minimum period of 3 standard cycles, the being droned. "But there's an emergency clause for pre-existing relationships," Thea argued, pointing to a subsection, "which requires Form 89C, signed in triplicate during a full moon." "This is a space station," Royce pointed out. "There are no full moons. Precisely why we have Form 89D for space-based exemptions." The morning devolved into a blur of forms, stamps, and increasingly absurd requirements. Bruno's running commentary didn't help. "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Though in space, the concept of seasons is rather meaningless." By midday, they'd accumulated a stack of permits but seemed no closer to resolving Bruno's status. They retreated to a small cafe for lunch where Thea finally revealed her master plan. "We're going about this wrong," she said, lowering her voice. "The bureaucracy isn't meant to be beaten, it's meant to be overwhelmed." "What do you mean?" "We file everything. Every possible form, permit, and application, create so much paperwork that the system has to give us what we want just to clear the backlog." "That's—" Royce stared at her. "Brilliant and terrifying." "Like me?" She winked. "Exactly like you." They spent the afternoon flooding the system. Thea's knowledge of the station's regulations was encyclopedic, and she knew exactly which forms would create the most administrative chaos. By evening, 3 departments had crashed their processing systems trying to handle the volume of their submissions. "I believe," Bruno commented from his remote connection, "the humans would call this a bureaucratic DDoS attack. Most elegant." They celebrated their administrative warfare with dinner in Thea's suite, takeout containers spread across forms and permits. The tension of the day melted away as they traded stories and strategies. "You know," Royce said, watching her laugh at one of Bruno's quips, "this wasn't exactly how I planned to spend my time here." "Disappointed?" Thea raised an eyebrow. "Surprisingly, no." He pulled her close. "Though we should probably discuss that data core at some point." "Tomorrow," she murmured against his lips. "Right now, I think we need to generate some more documentation for Bruno's emotional dependency case. Is that what we're calling it? Would you prefer conducting a thorough system inspection? Their laughter was interrupted by Bruno's voice. Shall I prepare a detailed report of your intimate activities for the psychological evaluation? No, they shouted in unison. As Night Cycle fell over Aldrin 5, Royce realized something had shifted. What had started as a simple repair job had evolved into something far more complex and far more interesting. Between Thea's brilliant mind, Bruno's theatrical tendencies, and the labyrinth of station bureaucracy, he was in deeper than he'd ever planned to be. And somehow, he didn't mind at all. This is either brilliant or completely insane, Thea said, staring at the form Royce had just submitted. The holographic display showed her new status: registered equipment, classification, advanced maintenance system, humanoid. Technically, Royce grinned, you're now part of my ship's essential systems, and since Bruno is classified as a weapon, a registered mechanic has automatic clearance to work on military hardware. Thea's eyes lit up, even retroactively. You beautiful bastard. I believe, Bruno chimed in, the appropriate quote would be, beauty and wisdom joined in sweet accord. Can it, Shakespeare? Royce said, but he couldn't stop smiling. 3 days of bureaucratic hell had led to this moment of inspired desperation. Though I should warn you, being my equipment means you're technically required to follow my orders. Thea stepped close, her blue skin almost glowing under the office lights. Is that so, Captain? Her voice dropped to a whisper. And what exactly would you order me to do? Before Royce could respond, the processing system chimed. Registration complete. Status update. All permits approved. Weapon reclassification processed. Have a pleasant day. Just like that? Royce blinked. After all the forms and... Don't question it. Thea grabbed his hand. Let's get out of here before they realize what we did. They practically ran from the administrative center, laughing like teenagers who just pulled off the perfect prank. Bruno's voice followed them through Royce's communicator, reciting victory speeches from various historical battles. So, Thea said when they finally stopped to catch their breath, what now, Captain? First, Royce pulled her into a quiet alcove. I think we should celebrate properly. No forms, no permits, just us. What about Bruno? I have a mute button. I object most strenuously, Bruno's voice crackled. As your designated emotional support unit, my input on romantic matters is clearly... Royce switched off the communicator. Now, about that celebration. Actually, Thea's expression turned serious. There's something I need to show you first. She pulled out a data crystal. Remember how I said I had an interest in that core you were after? You've been holding out on me? I needed to be sure I could trust you. She pressed the crystal into his hand. This is everything I collected before they forced me out of the fleet. Names, dates, coordinates. The Nova Syndicate has people everywhere, including Aldrin 5, Royce finished, realization dawning. That's why you know the system so well. I've been gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment, the right ally. Her eyes met his. What you were trying to steal? It's the missing piece. Together, we could expose the whole network. Royce studied the crystal, then Thea's face. This is bigger than a repair job. Much bigger. She stepped closer. I understand if you want to walk away. Take Bruno and... He kissed her, cutting off her words. When they broke apart, both slightly breathless, he said, I'm not going anywhere, though we might need a better plan than last time. Actually, Thea's smile turned wicked. I have an idea about that. But first, she reactivated his communicator. Bruno, how would you like to perform the greatest role of your career? At last, the droid exclaimed. The universe shall be my stage. The plan they hatched was audacious, combining Thea's inside knowledge, Royce's tactical experience, and Bruno's theatrical tendencies. The droid would play his role as the ultimate distraction, while they retrieved the core using Thea's old security clearances, which were still valid thanks to the station's notorious bureaucratic lag in processing resignations. "One condition," Royce said as they finalized the details. "After this is done, you're not just my registered equipment. You're my partner, both in the ship and—" "Careful," Thea teased. "That almost sounds like a proposal. Would that require Form 87C or 87D?" "Both, in triplicate, during a solar eclipse." They laughed, but there was truth beneath the humor. Whatever had sparked between them in that first meeting had grown into something neither had expected. "By the way," Thea added, "I may have already filed some preliminary partnership paperwork. Just in case. Always thinking ahead. Someone has to." She pulled him toward his ship. "Now, about that celebration." The Lucky Strike's interior had transformed in Thea's absence. Soft lighting, music, and somehow impossibly fresh flowers scattered across surfaces. "Bruno," Royce sighed. "What did you do?" "I took the liberty of creating an appropriate romantic atmosphere," the droid's voice came through the ship's speakers. "Based on extensive analysis of popular entertainment, the key elements for successful courtship include mood lighting, musical accompaniment, and organic flora." "And what else?" Thea asked, noticing Royce's suspicious look. "I've also prepared a selection of romantic poetry, relationship advice, and detailed anatomical references for—" "Mute, ship-wide," Royce commanded. Blessed silence fell. "Poor Bruno," Thea laughed, picking up one of the flowers. "He's just trying to help. He's trying to micromanage my love life." But Royce was smiling as he pulled her close. "Though I have to admit, the flowers are a nice touch. Very smooth." She wound her arms around his neck. "So, Captain, now that you've got me on your ship, what are your orders?" "Well, according to Regulation 47B, all new equipment requires a thorough inspection." "Is that so?" Her fingers traced patterns on his chest. "And how thorough are we talking?" "Extremely." He backed her toward his quarters. "Could take all night." "Better get started then." They barely made it through the door before their lips met, hands fumbling with clasps and zippers. Thea's blue skin seemed to glow in the dim light, making every touch feel electric. "Wait," she pulled back suddenly. "Did you actually shut down Bruno's systems, or just the audio?" A discreet cough came from the computer terminal. "I feel compelled to point out that my observational protocols are purely for scientific—" "Full shutdown," they shouted in unison. This time, the silence was complete. Thea dissolved into laughter against Royce's chest. "We're going to have to work on his boundaries," she managed between giggles. "Later," Royce growled, pulling her back to him. "Much later." The night that followed was everything their first time had been, and more. No bureaucratic pressure, no hidden agendas, just them discovering each other all over again. Every touch, every kiss felt like writing a new story together. Morning found them tangled in sheets, planning their next move. The data core waited, but for now, this moment was enough. "You know," Thea traced lazy patterns on his chest, "we never did go on that proper date you promised. Pretty sure multiple nights together counts as dating. Not according to Station Regulation 15D. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Official courtship procedures require—" Royce silenced her with a kiss. "No more regulations, no more forms, just us. And Bruno, unfortunately." Speaking of the droid, a discreet chime indicated his systems coming back online. "If you two are quite finished with your carnal activities," Bruno's voice was distinctly prim, "we do have a rather important heist to plan." "Speaking of the heist," Thea sat up, wrapping the sheet around herself. We should discuss strategy. Must we do so now? Bruno lamented. The afterglow statistics suggested at least another 47 minutes of mute, Royce commanded, then turned to Thea. He's right, though, about the strategy, not the statistics. They spent the next hour planning, Thea's technical expertise complementing Royce's tactical experience. Bruno, once allowed to speak again, contributed surprisingly useful insights between Shakespearean quotes. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Bruno would create a diversion with his most dramatic performance yet, while Thea used her old credentials to access the secure areas. Royce would handle extraction, ready to get them all out fast when things inevitably went sideways. And after? Thea asked quietly when the planning was done. After, you stay. Royce met her eyes. If you want to. As your registered equipment? As my partner. In everything. Her smile was answer enough. The heist itself went surprisingly smoothly, largely thanks to Bruno's outstanding performance of King Lear in the main concourse. His theatrical breakdown about the cruel fate of outdated droids drew quite a crowd, including most of the security staff. While the drama unfolded, Thea and Royce slipped through maintenance tunnels, retrieved the core, and made it back to the Lucky Strike before anyone realized what had happened. I must say, Bruno declared as they broke orbit, my performance was particularly moving. Did you see the security chief wiping away tears during my monologue? You were magnificent, Thea assured him, while working to decrypt the core's contents. Though maybe next time less of the interpretive dance. Everyone's a critic. The data, when combined with Thea's evidence, was damning. Anonymous transmission to key authorities would ensure the Nova Syndicate's operations on Aldrin 5 wouldn't survive the week. So, Royce said, watching Thea work, ready for your first official assignment as ship's mechanic? Depends. She looked up with that now familiar mischievous glint. Do I get my own quarters? I was thinking you could share the captain's. How scandalous. She pulled him down for a kiss. What would the bureaucrats say? Probably demand Form 94E for unauthorized cohabitation. Actually, Bruno chimed in, according to station regulations, your relationship status was automatically updated when Thea was registered as equipment. Technically, you're already married by Aldrin 5 law. They both froze. What? Royce managed. Oh yes, the paperwork was quite clear. Shall I recite the relevant subsections? Thea burst out laughing. Only we could accidentally get married trying to fix a Shakespeare-quoting droid. Could be worse, Royce pulled her close. Could have had to fill out the actual marriage forms. True, though we should probably expect a fine for skipping the ceremonies. Worth it. 1 month later, the fine arrived exactly as predicted. Notice of violation. Unauthorized matrimonial proceedings without proper documentation. Thea read the amount and whistled. That's a lot of credits. Allow me to calculate the compound interest, Bruno offered, taking into account the standard penalties and administrative fees. Don't bother, Royce said, pulling Thea into his lap. Some things are worth the fine. How romantic, she teased. Though you realize this means we're still technically married according to Aldrin 5 law. Guess you're stuck with me then. Could be worse. She kissed him softly. Could be stuck with just Bruno. I resent that implication, the droid protested. I'm a delight to be around, as Shakespeare said. Mute, they said together, laughing as they silenced their theatrical third wheel. The stars stretched before them, full of possibilities and adventures. They had each other, a ship, and a droid with an appreciation for the classics. What more could anyone want? Well, maybe fewer forms to fill out. The end.